This is Angry Video Game Nerd 2, Assimilation. It's one of those retro, old school action platformers. And this game, it's $15 US, that's the base price, and then it's 20% off on Steam right now, which knocks it down to 12 bucks. But the most this game should really cost is 10. Because you'll see on that file selection screen, it took me 90 minutes, just under 90 minutes to beat this game, 100% on normal. And I should have put it on old school because normal was a little too easy, but the game's just way too short. So looking at it really quick here, you're doing like a side-scroller platformer, you know, jumping, shooting. It's got some Mega Man X qualities in it now as well. So you have your wall slide. You can also find a cape that lets you do a kind of Super Mario thing, or Super Mario World, where you jump, you press a button, and you float down slowly for a few seconds. I actually found that extra press of the jump button to use the cape got in the way of the gameplay a few times, because I'd be trying to press X, doing a wall jump, and it would somehow activate the cape instead, so I'd just end up floating down because I wouldn't get the jump and I'd die. There's a super scope thing you find that lets you do more damage. There's some sort of like glasses, 3D glasses thing you find that lets you see invisible blocks and items. And there's a power glove that lets you punch through bricks. And you'll see I go and get that first this time around. There's also, throughout each stage, there's the letters nerd, or the letters that spell out the word nerd, on cartridges. And as far as I can tell, those do nothing for you in-game. It's just if you collect all of them, you get an achievement. And there's 19 achievements for this. In the 90 minutes I spent playing this, I got 15 of 19. I think 3 of the ones I didn't get were related to difficulty. So old school, hard as balls, and then there's one called, you know, effing impossible that I think unlocks when you beat the game on hard as balls. And then there's another achievement I didn't get, which is getting no deaths on all the levels, which I don't really care to do that with this game. It's not like Mega Man 9 where the stage design is so incredible that I want to go back and do it again. So it's an okay game. It's definitely overpriced. I wouldn't spend more than $10 on this. The nice thing about it is if you really want it, like I'm not going to do this, but if you really want to, the Steam refund window is 2 hours. You can buy this game, play it on easy or normal, beat it, and then get your money back. Like that's how short it is, and they just didn't put a lot in this. Like that's the real issue. So there's 22 levels total. There's 5 worlds. Each level or each world has 4 levels, and then the last stage is divided into 2 levels. And I wouldn't recommend going into the second last level without all the upgrades because it makes it a lot easier. But overall, this game is just way too short. The music is okay. There were some weird audio glitches I found when you're underwater. Like they intentionally make it so when you're underwater, the music gets a kind of like a diffused effect. Like let's say you're like listening to music in like a hot tub that has speakers underwater. So I don't know how many people have been in that experience, but so when you're listening above the water and then you put your head underwater, it sounds different, right? It's like you kind of got like some natural earplugs in. It's not a complete accurate emulation of that same experience, but I understand what they're trying to do here. It kind of gets in the way though. I didn't like it, especially on the levels where you're the parts of the levels where you're going out of the water and back in and out of the water and back in. You just constantly get it flipping back and forth, and it's not the right natural transition. And also there's, I think it's the 3rd level of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles styled world, where you have a crocodile or alligator chasing you, and I kept getting audio pops in there, so that's a glitch I need to address. Also, there were some art decisions I didn't really understand here. There's the blur on the side of the screen. I'm not sure what they're trying to emulate with that. I think it's trying to do the bubble effect from CRTs by putting blur on the side, but it didn't. It's without the bubble going completely around the entire screen, it doesn't make any sense. And aside from that, there should be a toggle for it, because I mean, I don't want to play on a CRT screen. That's why I have an LCD monitor, or I guess LED at this point. It was what it is. So it just kind of forcing that old school kind of look. It's unnatural. It doesn't feel right on a flat monitor. And aside from that, they didn't do it right. There's also some sort of on some of the levels you have like a limited light radius, and then you'll get killed by things you can't see. So it's kind of like, you walk forward, that thing kills you, and go, okay, that's there. It's in the darkness. I don't see it. So you'll walk forward, then you'll kind of shoot in that direction or run faster to avoid that hazard or whatever it is you have to do. But it's just, it didn't make much sense. It gets in the way of the game. I think it would have been better if they had done it like the original AVGN, or just like, any Mega Man game where you just see the entire stage, on your screen, and there's, unless it's like a specific stage gimmick, but they did it in a way that makes it unfair until you've seen it. So I think that about covers it. This game, it really wasn't that difficult, but again, I did play on normal. I should have played on old school, or maybe even hard as balls, because this is way too easy. But even I think if I played on a harder difficulty, I at most would have tacked on another 30 or 40 minutes. Like, I think even if you go on the hardest difficulty on this from your first playthrough, I don't think you're going to be looking at more than 3 hours. So that's something to keep in mind. I definitely would have not bought it if I knew it was going to be this short. Another thing I wanted to touch on here was, you'll tell by looking at this game, it's not a game that should be considered very demanding hardware-wise, but even on my PC, which it's not bleeding edge, like I've given up on doing that competition, but it's a mid-range from 2015 PC, so the fact that there's slowdown in this game, I'm not sure if that's something they did to emulate that old school style, which if that was the case, then I don't understand why they do that. I don't think anybody really liked that, as a hardware limitation. If they're doing that intentionally, there should be the toggle, but it seems to happen intermittently. Like, sometimes it's because there's a lot of enemies on the screen dying at once, and then because of it looks like there's like all the debris, or all like the gibbing that happens, it creates like a temporary frame drop, which I think would be physics. So their physics in this game could be buggy and causing that. But then there's other times where it's just like I'm on a screen, like the Ghosts and Goblins, whatever, they did a name play there, but the first level, that's like Ghosts and Garbage, I think it's actually called. That entire level just ran at like 30 frames per second, and I think the rest of the game, I think it's supposed to run at 60, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but really, in my mind, anything from like 2010 onwards, even if it has like integrated graphics, should be able to run this at 60 frames. And maybe it's some of the effects they have on, or the physics, but they should have some toggles for this. So like, if you can turn off the blur, if you could turn off, there's a bit of like color diffusion going on, that should be able to be turned off. And then there's maybe some shader effects with the lighting that could be turned off as well. So they should be putting that in here, just so that, because there's definitely people, I think, who are just, they travel and they bring a laptop along, and I don't think this game would run on it, because it doesn't seem to run very well on my PC, which doesn't make much sense either. So overall, once again, $15 for 3 hours tops, I'm thinking, is overpriced. I wouldn't pay more than $10. If you could get it on sale, like, that's always going to be kind of a no-brainer. But if I could go back, and undo all of this, I'd probably buy it for $7.50. Personally, that would be my maximum.